Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Michelle Fondin and I'm the author of Twin Flame Romance, The Journey to Unconditional Love, and also Chakra Healing for Vibrant Energy, exploring your 7 energy centers with mindfulness, yoga, and Ayurveda. So go ahead and pick up your copies to support this channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome! Thank you for subscribing below. Click on that bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. I do readings. I do 30, 60, and 90-minute readings, twin flame readings, romance readings, life path and purpose. You can book that at my website, fondinwellness.com. Today, we are talking about Anchoring the Light, Part 2. Part 1 was done in March. We're doing Part 2 today. This is for twin flames, soulmates, light workers, empaths, or anyone who feels like they are an enlightened being or moving toward the sense of enlightenment. So let's talk. There have been some things going on in the world. Just a few things. A few things have been happening in the world. Yeah, a few things have been happening. How are you doing? It's interesting because in January of 2020, I believe it was around January, around the new year, I had a channeled message from my angels about something that they referred to as the Great Divide. Now at the time, and I speak about this in other videos, at the time I thought that they were uniquely speaking about twin flames. And as time has unfolded through to June 2020, where we are today, I realized that the message they were sending me about this concept of the Great Divide was actually a much deeper message that went much deeper into humanity as a whole. Now, I'm not here to talk to you about current events. I'm not here to talk to you about what's been happening in the news, the media, and reality, or any of that. I'm here to give you guys a different perspective on perhaps your role as a light worker. Because each of us has a role to play on this earth, and it's in playing that role to the fullest that we can let our destinies unfold fully. And if we are not fully participating in our own destiny, then we're not doing the role we were put here on earth to do. So during this situation where everything is very divisive, and I'm sure you feel that, you not only feel it intuitively, but you see it in the news and on social media and everywhere. It's just division, 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 division. Now, what does Spirit want? Spirit doesn't want division. Spirit wants unity. And that's really why we as light workers were put on this earth, is to advance this concept of unity and unconditional love. So if any part of us is not advancing the agenda, if you will, we're using words here that can be interchanged with more earthly concepts, but let's just use this. So anytime that you're not advancing the agenda of unity, then you're not, as a light worker, you're not moving towards your life path and purpose, you're actually moving away from it. When we speak of the Great Divide that the angels had told me, initially they were talking about twin flames who came here for a purpose of healing, who knew from the get-go that their journey was not going to result in reunion with their twin flame, because their journey was going to take a slightly different turn. But as my angels mentioned back in January, they said the twin flames who know that this journey is about the unfoldment of their destiny, and like the reason why they met their twin flame is for different purposes. Now, they might be friends throughout life, they might be colleagues, they might have a certain kinship throughout life, but there's a certain subset, and if that's you, you know exactly who you are, that you're designed to help with this growth. But initially when you first met, you kind of knew that this is not my divine destiny to be with this person forever. You knew that. Now there's another subset of twin flames who knew it from the get-go, who understood that being with their twin flame in union and reunion and marriage as an example, is a part of their divine destiny. And they too knew that from the very beginning. And the Great Divide, as we extend it into the rest of humanity, as what is happening right now, is the divisiveness of light versus dark. It's really that simple. I mean, if we're really to put it in layman's terms, it's truly that simple, because while there is light in everyone and there is darkness in everyone, we walk a fine line. Now, I'm super excited because my new book called Heal Yourself, A Return to Wholeness is coming out soon. And I believe the links will go up this weekend, probably by Sunday night, for pre-orders for the book that will be coming out within the next, I should say, around June 15th. And the Audible version will probably come out closer to June 30th because it takes a couple of weeks longer for Audible to come out. But pre-orders will be up for the paperback. And I have an entire chapter dedicated to duality, the nature of duality, and this fine line that we walk between light and dark, like the fine line that we all walk. So it's not as if people are inherently good or inherently bad. That's not the way Earth works. That's not the way humanity works. Yes, we have propensities for both, and yes, the scales might tip in one direction or another direction, depending on our upbringing and the choices that we make in each moment. However, it's not as if those who are choosing darkness cannot choose light, and those who choose light cannot choose darkness. That's not the way this goes. It's a perfect balance between both. And when you're really shining your light and embracing your light, you are choosing light over darkness. And if you lead yourself toward unity with the planet and the universe, and you lead friends and family by your example into unity, then you are moving continually toward the light. And it's just as easy as a choice. Now, that choice sometimes comes with major consequences, and that's when we're talking about anchoring the light. Anchoring the light is not something you're going to go outside of yourself and do. It's not something like you're going to sit in the middle of a public square meditating, sitting in lotus pose for 12 hours at a time, meditating in order to anchor that light. Because you can do that from home. You don't have to be out in public in a public square meditating for 12 hours during the day to anchor the light. You can do that at home. You can do that with the way you treat people. You can do that with the way you treat yourself. You can do that with the way you treat your family, how you act and react via social media or in other interactions with other human beings. So you don't have to do something on the exterior necessarily to anchor that light. Anchoring the light is more about everything that you're doing internally. Now, what does this mean? For many of you, you're going to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So obviously having some spiritual practices to keep you grounded, like meditation and visualization and sitting in silence for at least an hour a day. That's the ideal, twice a day, 30 minutes. Also, really getting in touch with nature, getting in touch with yourself, like fulfilling your own needs first is one way you actually anchor light. Why? Because when your needs are fulfilled, you're not reaching out toward others to fulfill your needs for you. And also, when we don't meet our own needs, we have a tendency, we're talking about basic human needs. When we don't reach out to others because we've failed to provide for ourselves in the way of, I'm going to work myself to the bone and get 2 hours of sleep and then go the next day and get another 2 hours of sleep. Or when we feed ourselves the wrong foods, or we don't drink enough water, or we don't exercise, and we don't take some time for silence and meditation and reconnection with nature, we don't take time to commune with family and friends. So all of those basic needs, if we're not doing that, then we tend to revert to ego, which ego, we know, can be used as a tool, and it helps us move forward in the world, but ego can also quickly spiral into moving into those darker energies. And we're seeing a lot of that today because ego is pretty loud. Ego is a lot louder than spirit. Ego has a really loud and obnoxious voice, just generally speaking. Ego is literally like the 2-year-old who hasn't been fed, who is in the middle of a grocery store and sees a box of Captain Crunch and is dead set on getting that cereal and will demonstrate that by throwing a temper tantrum in the middle of the aisle. It doesn't matter who's around. And so that is the voice of the ego. So what happens is when you're not taking care of yourself first, it's really hard to anchor light, because we do have human needs. We do have basic needs. So that's really one way that you can start anchoring the light now, is by taking care of yourself and going to that inner place, which is that place of peace. Now, one other thing that I want to say to you as a light worker is, for me, for example, I'll just give you an example that right now, and I really believe for the last 5 months or so, I have completely stayed away as much as I can. I'm telling you, like less than 1%. Now, I don't count my YouTube channel, and I don't count like a couple of people I follow on YouTube that are usually more for entertainment purposes than anything else. It's, you know, comedians and whatnot. So very lighthearted stuff. And it's mostly just video lighthearted stuff, not anything serious in any way. But other than that, I have abstained from social media for the most part for the last 5 to 6 months. Now, here's why: because the divisiveness that we're seeing in society today is so prevalent on social media. And I just don't, for me personally, as a light worker, as an empath, like I don't want that energy to be attached to me on a daily basis. It's just unhealthy. And there's rarely anything ever constructive on social media these days. I'm talking about these days. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of divisiveness. It's a lot of people stepping on each other's toes. It's a lot of people taking a stance for or against something. And it can be anything. I'm not talking about the events of this past week and the past 2 weeks. I'm really talking about like everything. People are fighting, and I just hear this from other people. I'm not on social media, but I hear it from other people. You know, people are fighting over things like face masks. You know, if they see, I know that it's been said that certain people are getting screamed at for not wearing a face mask in public, just things like that. So it's just, you know, whether you walk your dog at 5 a.m. or whether you walk your dog at 5 p.m., you know, there's just, people are fighting about everything. They're angry about everything. They're fighting about everything. It's just this major ego flare-up that is causing this great division, this great divide. Now, I really believe, I truly believe, because if heaven is okay with this, meaning like if they have given the green light for this to happen, it's that it is meant to happen. It's meant to happen because there's something happening well underneath the surface, and the angels did say this too. My angels explained to me that I can't even say it online, but the virus, we should say, the pandemic, is just a facade. It's a facade for something much, much deeper underneath the surface that's brewing. And we've already seen that in the past 2 weeks. We've seen that, you know, these stories about the virus have more or less subsided, and other things have taken precedence in the news. So there's a lot more happening than meets the eye. There's a lot more happening that is brewing underneath the surface. There are a lot more eruptions of such things that will occur in the next 2 years. I'd say 18 months to 2 years. There's a lot more that is happening. There's a lot more that is going on. Now, nothing gets wasted. God uses everything. God uses every tear. God uses every smile. Nothing gets wasted in the grand scheme of things. So don't think that whatever is happening today or yesterday or 5 months ago or tomorrow is going to go to waste. It's not going to go to waste, because there is a path and purpose for it. Let's look at the grander picture of what the role of light workers are in anchoring this light. And this is where, as a light worker, I would super duper love it if you could step out of your ego for now. Everybody, step out of your ego for now and go into spirit. Go into your spiritual self. So we're just going to take a deep breath in. We're going to exhale, and we're going to say to our egos, I love you. I care for you. You're a part of me. I'm going to let you go to sleep right now. And spirit, you're going to come into me, and I'm going to listen with an open mind and open ears. As a light worker, even though many of us are twin flames, many of us are soulmates, many of us are empaths and just plain old light workers here to spread the light and anchor the light, we do, even in this, have different roles. So some light workers are here literally just designed to anchor the light. That's it. Meditation, prayer, peacefulness, walking about their day in peace and serenity and happiness and love, being nice to everyone they meet, being kind, being generous, spreading love wherever they go, even if it's to the grocery store, the dry cleaners, or the gas station. That's just their role. That's it. They're here as peacekeepers, they're here as light bearers, and they're here as light anchorers, if you will. Their role, and I believe I'm in this category, obviously I'm speaking to you guys, so my role is partly being a leader, but that is to my community, right? So that is to my light bringer community. That's to the light worker community. But I believe as far as my daily living goes, that is the part of the category that I am in. Then there are those of you who will be active activists in being light workers. Now, honestly, you guys have the hardest job of all. We're here as the ones who are anchoring the light and walking the pathway through peacefulness and just like high meditation, high prayer, kind of a more passive role in this. We are allowing you the groundwork for your active pursuit toward bearing the light. But you guys have a harder role, I believe, because what you, in being this light worker who's bringing it through activism, is having to balance light and dark. And it can be really tempting to go into the darkness when you are out there into the world. So I'm talking about perhaps like things like demonstrations or talking to people or creating groups, like social groups that you meet with people to talk things through and maybe have like philosophical debates or things like that. Or even going on political campaigns, for example, doing like canvassing for certain political campaigns. So we're talking about getting out there into the world and being mixed in with people who are not light workers in order to spread the light. And like I said, you guys have the absolute hardest job because it can be very tempting to move into that ego mindset with those who are in ego. So that sense of very divisiveness, like getting back into that argument about who's right, who's wrong, getting back into like, my group is better than your group, my thing is better than your thing, like, I think you should do it this way instead of this way. That's all ego stuff. And as a light worker, that's not what we're here to do. That's not here. Remember, our job is unity and unconditional love. That's not what we're here to do. So you guys have the tougher role. Then there are light workers who have a more passive active role. And the light workers that are here with a more passive active role might be doing things like writing letters to organizations, sending in money because they have the money to send in to certain organizations to support the organizations that are moving more toward the light, that they are more moving toward like one-on-one light work where they're meeting one-on-one with an individual and talking about perhaps like creating a sustainable future for the planet, like things like that. So those are more like passive activists in the light work. So it's more like they're the underdogs, if you will. They're not going to get so much recognized because they're doing things kind of behind the scenes. And since they're doing things behind the scenes, it might not seem like they're doing a lot, but every single thing that they do, even if they touch a couple of people a day, it's still a lot of work that they are doing because they're bearing that light. Again, we have all different roles in this. So if you are caught up in your ego, or you have in the past, because you're not now, because you put your ego to sleep, you put it down for a little nap during this video. In the past, if you've said like, oh, all twin flames should be this or do this, or all twin flames should do that, or all soulmates have to do this, or they have to do that. Well, that's a really limited worldview of what role we've been handed. And that's why we all have different gifts and talents. We have gifts and talents to use them in different ways. Not everybody is good at everything. So all of us are good at different things. And really, God gives us our work based on our individual gifts and talents and what we're actually good at. And that's where we're supposed to shine, not in the stuff that we're not good at, because then it would be an uphill battle all the time, and that's not what God wants. So move toward what is natural for you. If you're thinking like you have a friend who you know is a light worker, who's an influence to you, and they're not going out to be an active, out there light worker, and you're like, why aren't you with me? Why aren't you doing this? Don't you care? You don't care. Well, their role is maybe just anchoring the light, or their role is maybe having that more passive active role where they're like sending in money or talking to an individual or making connections so that they know people in power or people that can make a difference through like the back door kind of thing. So there are many, many, many different ways in which we can anchor that light. And again, think broad. I'm not just speaking about what's happened in the last 6 months in any country in the entire earth. I'm speaking about everything, about unity of the planet. So this can go from saving stray cats in your neighborhood because you know that's part of unity, that we are all one on this planet. So if you're called to save stray cats, that's your role. You know, that's bringing in unity, right? Bringing people together, bringing, for example, like elderly people who are lonely together with a stray cat. And now they have somebody, and that's bringing them together. That's unity. It's signing up to clean dolphins and sea lions who've been affected by oil spills. Like, unity! Sea lions, dolphins, we know that we live together on this planet. We're going to help you. So it could be anything, you guys. It doesn't have to be just like one thing or another thing, because what I want you to keep in mind as light workers is that the perspective is always going to shift. Okay? Right now, the perspective is on one thing. 2 months ago, perspective was on another thing. And 6 months ago, perspective was on another thing. And so depending on the perspective of what is on the forefront of all things social media, all things social, let's say, right? So we're speaking about anything that you see in front of you, including billboards. That perspective is always going to shift. Your attention is always going to be called to one thing or another thing or another thing or another thing. So the question that a light worker needs to ask themselves is like, not what is the cause that I support today? What is the perspective that I support today? That's not what light workers are called for. They're called to understand, what is it in me that keeps my heart pure enough, that keeps my life pure enough, that I'm able to move forward in my light in everything I do. Everything I do, even your thoughts. Even your thoughts. Now, you must forgive yourself for having thoughts that might be less than rosy. And that's okay. Like, sometimes that happens. You are human. I am human. Sometimes that happens. But it's just watching those thoughts and noticing what comes up. Like, does it come up more in my thoughts that I'm divisive? That as soon as somebody says something that I don't agree with, that I think I put them into a category, like I place them into a bucket of a category, you know, or do I just take what they're saying into perspective and go, oh, that's really interesting. You know, there's a lot of people on earth. A lot of people have different opinions. Really interesting. Or do you get angry when you read something on the news or social media or on YouTube or whatever? Do you get upset? Are you able to stay in your peacefulness? Are you able to stay in your centered state? Do you find that in the course of things, because like I said, what's in front of your face now was different 2 months ago. What's in front of your face now was different 6 months ago, really different 6 months ago. And it was even different a year ago. And so perspectives change. What's in front of your eyes changes from day to day. But how have your reactions been to everything? As a light worker, what you strive to do is reduce the darkness within you by acknowledging it. You got to first acknowledge it. And then move toward the light and say, how can I personally spread unity on the planet? How can I personally spread peacefulness on the planet? How can I personally be nice to people on the planet and be kind to people on the planet, even if I really don't like them? Because you're allowed not to like people, but you can still bring about unity by treating them kindly and being genuine about it. Saying, okay, I might not like this person, but I can still treat them with kindness. What does that cost me? It doesn't cost me anything to be kind. It doesn't cost me anything to say good morning. It doesn't cost me anything to say hello. And also it includes not engaging in divisive arguments, not engaging at all in divisive arguments, and not engaging in categorizing, which seems to be happening a lot these days. And it starts with your inner voice. It starts with your inner dialogue. It starts with your inner behavior. And it starts with your inner calling. This is not about the events that are happening today at all. It's the great divide that's happening, the awakening that's happening, the reasons that all this muck, if you will, is coming to the surface. It has nothing to do with individualized events. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with light workers helping the collectivity reach critical mass. I'm saying if you're a light worker, obviously, but it's having to do with helping humanity reach critical mass by the mindset of unity, by the mindset of peacefulness, and by the mindset of love in every moment of your life. Even reading stuff that brings about divisiveness is contributing to divisiveness. Now, you can be aware of current events and what's happening around the world. It takes a minute, literally a minute. You can read headlines and go, okay, that happened. All right, we're good. And that's really what I do for the day. Some days, if there's some compelling stories, I'll listen a little bit longer. But usually those are more in-depth studies of stories that are a little bit more interesting. So it's not necessarily divisiveness as much as it is educational. For example, history, like what has happened in history when it comes to great disease and things like that. Or like scientific studies, like I'm super interested in scientific studies. So things like that. But when it comes to just reading pure gossip and garbage, because believe me, a lot of that is out there everywhere. And you know as well as I do that it's all over the place now. Not only the way it was before, but it's more like exacerbated, being that people have a lot of time on their hands. And so even reading and following threads like that is contributing to that. I know it doesn't sound logical right now, but it's where is your mindset? Is your mindset continually on unity? Is your mindset continually on stepping outside of the current problem or the current perspective, if you will, into something bigger? Okay? So that's what I really super duper want you to grasp today is how do I individually anchor the light in every moment of my life? But looking at things from a real perspective. We're not talking about being like all like oh, here I am. I'm a light worker. I'm up here. You guys are down here. It's more like just, what is my role? What is my role here? And then participate in that role wholeheartedly. And don't get bogged down with details of things that in 6 months are going to change. You can have a stance. You can have an opinion. Of course you can. You don't need to share it though. Right? You don't need to share it though. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes sharing it contributes to divisiveness, to that division. Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it does. And that's up to you to have the discernment to make that decision. It's like, what am I about to say going to flare up a bunch of egos around me? You can still hold that opinion. You can still help that opinion behind scenes. But the reason for that sharing, is it really your ego's need to shine brightly? Or is it because it's very important? Important meaning it'll change the course of the events when it comes to unity. So I don't know. That's the delicate line. That's the delicate dance that we move through. But if you truly think that there must be something I have to do outside of me in order to bring about unity and peacefulness and love and spread the light in this world, and you have not yet started with yourself and your personal actions and reactions and internal dialogue, you're going to go about it all wrong. Because what's going to end up happening is you're going to push forward the agenda of the ego. So let's backtrack a little bit. Let's start anchoring that light. Let's settle for anchoring what we know is good, anchoring what we know is unity, anchoring what we know in the ethereal world, in the spiritual world first. Make sure that we are okay with ourselves first, that we are okay with how we're acting, reacting, speaking, listening first. And then once you've done that, then you will move forward into helping to spread the light on earth in a much more grounded way. It won't be just willy-nilly based on what world events are occurring now. Oh my God, I got to turn here. And then when this happens, I got to turn here. And then I got to turn here. And then I got to go here. And then I got to go here. And it's just this frenzy of, where do I go next? And it's hysteria. Because hysteria is not unity. Because if you are moving in this direction, then this direction, then this direction, then that, you don't even have unity within yourself. That's the food for thought for today. I hope it helped just give you some perspective, because I know, especially as light workers, a lot of people feel really guilty that they're not doing enough. They feel guilty that, I wish I had more money to help this cause. I wish I had more courage to do this. I wish I had more friends and network and da-da-da-da-da. I wish I could do more, do more, do more, do more. And bearers of light are not asked to do more. Bearers of light are asked to be more. And that's what you're called to do. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on that bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. And thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you so much for sharing this video with other light workers. And thank you guys so much for supporting this YouTube channel. You can buy a book or 2 or 3 to support the channel. You can pledge your support on Patreon. We do a private party podcast every single month. www.patreon.com/Michelle S. Fondin. And I will see you in the next video.